I would say for the first 10 years of my professional life, I was trying not to get ejected by the men. I was the female crew. And on my first film, the AD kept on referring to me as the little lady. The little lady wants you to do this. The little lady wants you to do that. And on the third day, the little lady fired his ass off my set. I use plain language because I myself am a 16-year-old school leaver, so I don't have an academic language to talk about my work or indeed other people's work. One of the real things that I do think has been at the core of a lot of what I do is to make some things that are complex quite simple, or things that appear to be difficult quite personal to people who didn't think they were involved. You know, Oranges at the time was dealing with a subject that was not dealt with on television. So lesbian sexuality was not dealt with on television. The whole kind of idea of that sort of Pentecostal faith as being sort of oppressive in that way was not dealt with. It was certainly not dealt with humour. And it was always the intention to get an audience bigger than the audience who would already accept it.
Everyone smile and think of the second coming. What a photo.
That film now is a celebration for a lot of people. It's a lot of people saw it and discovered their own sexuality, or found the strength to give voice to something that they already knew about themselves, or found a way of pointing at it and then kind of looking at their mum and dad and going, you know that's me, don't you?
Have you got time for a baked potato?
If I'm in the UK, not 3 months goes past without someone saying a version of that. It was part of the language that was suddenly public. It was one artifact, if you like, of that public conversation. I was, a few years ago, I was put into the House of Lords, and I have sort of a more formal political position than I did when I made it. But I was able to walk through the lobby at the House of Lords and actually vote for gay marriage. And it did feel like something very, very special, having spent all of my adult life somehow engaged, in this question of sexual politics.
We are women, we are women, we are strong, we are strong, we say no to wrong.
Whereas we were there, day in, day out for 7 months, sleeping, in the car because of the equipment. That was the deal we made. We were evicted along with them. We had a police escort because they worked out that we knew where the women were having their actions. We were in every way part of the community. We had a lot of footage, then we had an accident, and then we had a realisation. We had 30 hours of footage. The accident was that I was moving house and I put it all in the back of the car, went inside to have a cup of tea, and someone broke into the car and stole all the tapes. A lot of them were thrown away, a lot of them were found in bins, lots of them some of them were actually kidnapped and sold back to us for money and so on. So we got 26 or 7 hours of our 30 hours back, which was a miracle. And then the interesting thing is that once we finished the film, it turned out that the policy of all the newscasters at the time was that they would keep their news bulletins, but they throw away all the stuff behind. So there was no footage of the Greenham camp without the voiceover of the newscaster.
Can you keep it down a weeny bit, please? Otherwise you won't hear me. It's important evidence. The first to do so this morning was 73-year-old Nell Logan, a grandmother and the oldest of the peace protesters. She said she had lived through 2 world wars and couldn't just...
Thank you very much, you kid. For God's sake, I'm doing a piece to camera to put your protest in a logical, in a way that people will understand. And to make out that you're making some sense, and you're going to clown around in the background. That doesn't do your case any good at all.
What we had is the history because they were busy getting rid of the history. And I find that really, really interesting about film and about what the potential of film is, because again, it's who's gaze, who's interested. No one thought the women were very important. And actually, in retrospect, they were quite important. And so many of the protests we've seen since then have copied some of the quality and some of the sort of imagination of that particular protest. For me, and for my generation, you know, it wasn't so obvious what a trajectory was because there was no one ahead. Yeah? And maybe when I advise young women coming up behind, I would say do some things differently from how I did them. But I don't do that with bitterness. I do that with, you know, I cut one kind of path and they're going to cut another kind of path. And if we all start cutting a lot of paths, there'll be a few more paths to go down. Do you know what I mean? It's inevitable. But I don't think I regret any of it, really.